Okay, dude, remind me to never eat at Hardee's again.
Okay, what?
The people there are crazy, dude. I was just enjoying a cheeseburger and they just started talking about all these different conspiracy theories. I think they might have been making tinfoil hats too.
Whoa, back it up. Were these theories Survivor related? I have to know this kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, it was all Survivor stuff, man. It made my head spin.
Like with all things, Survivor has its fair share of conspiracy theories, ranging from ones that took place within a single season and others that span several. Well, there are a lot of these that I don't go into much detail in this video, but if you guys like this one enough, then I would consider making another one about a theory I heard about heroes versus villains later down the line. But let's get into the theory we'll talk about today. So I'll preface that first I heard of this theory in an iceberg video for Survivor, and this was at the very bottom of the chart, which, if you're unfamiliar with iceberg charts, that means that it's extremely obscure, and only the few that are deeply entrenched in Survivor lore like me know of it. But today I'm going to bring it into the light of all to see. And the theory goes a little something like this. Basically, sometime in the very, very early years of the show, between Survivor Borneo and the Australian Outback, which were the first and second seasons, allegedly, another season was filmed, not far from where season 1 was made, still in Asia. Adding this season to the timeline of Survivor would have made the Outback season 3, Africa season 4, Marquesas season 5, and so on and so forth. However, this secret season sucked. It had a lackluster cast, an unsatisfying conclusion, and most importantly, Jeff Probst despised it so much that the season was just completely scrapped, never edited, never aired, at least not for a little while. Put it this way, did that description of the secret season ring a bell to you? Well, sure enough, according to this theory, the secret scrapped season made between Borneo and the Outback was finally edited and published as the show's 5th season, Survivor Thailand. That's right, this secret season is not actually secret at all. If it's true, then it's Thailand. The main discussion about this theory stems from whether it could be true or not. Now, at first I went, no way. But yet, I couldn't help but think that it very well could be. At least, it was fun to think about. But I did my research, and I found the answer to this question of whether this theory is true. And drumroll, please. It's not. Shocker, right? It did seem like a long shot to begin with, but I have a few points that finish off this theory and to put it to bed for good. Starting with our first one. And our first key to figuring out the legitimacy of this theory has everyone's favorite New York cop, Ken Stafford, to thank for. Ken was one of the more well-liked, if not the most well-liked player on this season. A real bright spot on the blemish on Survivor's history that was this season. And one of the main reasons why I think so many people, viewers and cast members alike, liked Ken so much was because he was a New York cop. And what happened in New York City not long after the season was officially released? 9/11. For pretty much everyone, Ken represented the patriotism of America, as we all recovered from probably the most debilitating attack on our country ever, not to mention that he most likely was serving at the time that 9/11 happened. Put it this way, if Thailand was actually made right after Borneo, then the show really did hit the ground running, or I guess stumbling after their beta test of a first season. In the first season, there really weren't that many twists or themes, but in Thailand, there were a lot of things they changed. For one thing, this was the first season that the mutiny twist was offered, implying that they had probably experimented with swaps between Borneo and Thailand, which they did. So the mutiny probably wouldn't have been a thing if Thailand was supposed to be directly follow Borneo. So case closed already. But then we look at the fake merge twist and see the two tribes just living on the same beach, which, yeah, I hope they never make that into a theme for a season. Oh, wait. Anyways, remember that the world was still new to Survivor after Borneo, and remember the shock on the contestants when they find out they're not actually merging yet. They were obviously expecting a merge, but if this was only the second pancake off the Survivor griddle, then would they really expect a merge to happen again to the extent that they would start gaming in anticipation of one? Also, look at how the tribes were formed in the first place. Having the oldest contestants doing a schoolyard pick as part of the whole Honor Your Elders theme, that was a big step from having tribes already divided by production at the start of the season. And all of these differences and twists and themes, yes, in theory it could have been that this was a very ambitious season and the producers wanted to throw a bunch of things at this second season and see what stuck. But then why would they revert back to the relatively same formula for the Outback, Africa, and Marquesas? If Thailand truly was the second season, then it would stick out like an even more sore thumb than it already does, simply because the amount of twists would suddenly shoot up and then fall back down again on the timeline of Survivor. Now, this is one of the more nitpickier points, but it still holds water for me. Let's look at the titles of the first few seasons of Survivor. We had Survivor, Survivor Australian Outback, and Survivor Africa. Africa. These are all really vague and nondescriptive titles. Like Survivor Africa? Where in Africa? That's one of the largest continents in area in the world, and they could be filming in Egypt, they could be filming in South Africa. Where are they? Oh, Kenya? Well, that would have been my third guess. And as a matter of fact, before 9/11, Marquesas was supposed to be set in Jordan and called Survivor Middle East. Again, continuing with the trend of not wanting you to know where they were specifically filming, I guess. Now, no, but actually, this is most likely because they weren't sure how many seasons they could crank out of this show, so they went with more broad titles. Around the time of Marquesas, they got more comfortable with having more specific names for their seasons, and now they don't even do that anymore. It evolved into just the name of the theme of the season, and currently they're just referring to seasons by their number. So if Thailand was made when this theory suggests it does, then it would likely have been called something like Survivor Asia or Survivor Southeast Asia, not very specifically Survivor Thailand. One of the best ways to realize that this whole theory is bogus is just to simply realize how past seasons were referenced explicitly or not in Survivor Thailand. And there's at least one example of a player using a strategy during a challenge that was previously used in an earlier season on Thailand. The best example I have of this is in the torch snuffing trivia challenge, which very much so resembled the coconut chopping challenge from Survivor Marquesas, just the season before. This strategy was employed by Helen this time, and it resulted in her winning that challenge, and it's obvious to see that her strategy was heavily inspired by the version of the challenge that happened, just in Marquesas, and that pretty blatantly proves that this season had to happen after Survivor Marquesas. I don't think that you would just by chance have the same strategy for the same challenge that someone else just did the season before. I know I've already established that Thailand had to have happened after 9/11 because of how people reacted to Ken being on the show, but what if there was a way, a visual proof that could convince even the naivest of viewers that this theory is untrue? That 9/11 happened before this season? Well, let's go to Survivor Thailand Reunion at the Ed Sullivan Theater. And where is the Ed Sullivan Theater? New York City. And in a typical old school Survivor fashion, Jeff Probst arrives on some sort of helipad by helicopter, meaning you get a good look at the New York skyline. A New York skyline that was unfortunately missing the World Trade Center, which is a pretty noticeable thing now. But can you imagine how impactful it would have been to see that missing then, because it had just recently happened? Just right there makes it so obvious that this season could not have been made before 9/11. Even if we look at it from like factual standpoints, just to prove that, oh well, this theory couldn't have happened, this theory can't be true, because this and this happened before after, or whatever. But just looking at it from like a logistics standpoint, this would be hell on earth to wait that long to release a season of a show. Just, because they would have been waiting for at least like a year or so. And after it was already scrapped, you have all the cast members thinking that they're not going to end up on TV, and now you have to call all of them and be like, hey, now you are going to be on TV now. It just seems like a nightmare for production to then, after all this time, finally air it, especially for a season that was lackluster to begin with. So basically, that's it. I remember when I saw this theory, I knew immediately I wanted to make a video about it because I just thought it was so interesting. But anyways, as for what's next, I know y'all have been waiting for it. I've heard people commenting, asking if this video is going to happen, and yes, it is. I am very obviously making a Masked Singer UK 3 cast reaction. I mean, I can't just ignore that topic after making one for Season 2 last year, and it's, by far my most viewed video, so I obviously need to make another one of these again. Besides, they're fun. And, so be on the lookout for that. That should probably be coming out pretty soon. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you later.